Welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. You're joining me today because I have a little project in mind that I've wanted to do for quite a while. Now, the CZ457 LRP you will be very familiar with if you're a viewer of my channel. I use this rifle a lot. I've had it for 4 years. It has never missed a beat in its whole lifetime, and it is my go-to rifle for optics testing. Now, the main reason for that, and a lot of people will say, why do you put such expensive scopes on just a Rimfire? So you can't see my face there, just a Rimfire. But there's method to my madness. If you break a scope because of recoil and this, that and the other, blah, 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 well, it's under warranty. What you don't get to test every day or review every day, day in, day out, all day long, is the adjustment capability of them, because you're not always shooting long enough distance to really exercise a scope with 15-20 milliradians of vertical travel. Whereas when you put a scope like that on a Rimfire, well, you get to actually notice a lot more features that aren't necessarily as obvious on a larger centerfire rifle. Now, starting at the back here, one of the first things you'll notice is, what is the eye relief like? Is it super long eye relief or not? Because on a Rimfire, actually, you often haven't got huge amounts of space for huge amounts of eye relief. The other thing that's very interesting is minimum parallax distance. Now, if you're wanting to review a scope which may be applied to rifles in all sorts of different shooting formats and markets, then yes, close range parallax capability is actually very, very important. And of course, on a Rimfire, you're more likely to use it at shorter distance. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm probably not going to put this scope on an air rifle, mainly because it's just a bit too big for sub-12 air rifles, which I love. FAC air rifles usually come with a scope when I'm reviewing them anyway. So that's one of the reasons I don't really have an issue putting a large scope on a Rimfire. Now, that is just a perfect amount clearing the barrel there. It's in Sportsmatch rings, so it's a 34mm tube, because this scope is a Schmidt Bender 6-36 high performance. Now, that is a serious optic. I did a review on this scope about a year ago now. I used it on a couple of rifles, and well, now I want to just shoot it even more. Now, it's 2025, it's sort of January, and I want to get out and do more shooting. And essentially, this is the scope and this is the rifle I want to do it with, because I've got quite a lot of ammunition testing to work on and things like that, so I need to make sure everything is going to work out. Now, the first thing I've noticed here is, although that scope will fit on there, the actual magnification collar won't rotate. Now, I haven't tightened this down for that reason, because I knew something wasn't just quite bedding in position. So I'm going to swap this off, get some different rings out, and raise it up just a little bit, because that is another factor you learn with big scopes on small rifles, which may or may not apply on larger rifles. It's the actual physical size of the scope. Now, the Schmidt Bender High Performance is one of the biggest scopes, and especially the ocular lens body is massive, because it gives you a huge ocular lens and you pretty much bathe in the image on one of these, because it is glorious. But there are, size and weight compromises to cope with. Not everything suits everybody. So I shall now do what I do probably 10 or 15 times a week. Mess around, taking scopes on and off rifles, putting scope rings back together, because I don't want to lose all the bits and pieces or the matched pairs, bolts, screws, etc. I don't think these are all made as matched pairs necessarily, but it's just easier to keep them paired up together rather than lose parts that you don't want to be lost. Right, so let's get the big screwdriver, and these can come off. I quite like the Sportsmatch 34mm mounts, because they are some of the lowest mounts made for 34mm tubes. You see that? Super low they are. But like I say, they don't fit everything or suit everything. 1 second, please. Right, back in the room. Change tools, change rings. These are tier 1. rings, one of my favourite products, because they never let you down, they never come loose, they never fail, and they are made locally to me in West Yorkshire actually. So I'm just going to pop those on there. Tighten these up to 5 Newton meters. This is a T25 Torx. Right. Clunk. Clunk. And for all the people out there who go, oh, you can't leave your torque wrenches set, oh, they'll go out of adjustment, well, they haven't in 10 years, so I'm not worrying. That's probably 20 years old, that, so I'm really not worrying about it. Spin these up. It's actually a little bit difficult to get hold of that one, so it's a lot simpler if I just do that. And that way I can tighten them up without undue strain or mechanical effort that's excessive. So I'm just going to put that there. Is that going to fit in about there? So that's going to be as far forward as possible. I can move that rear ring back a little bit, to be fair. I've overdone it there. Again, this comes back to the fact that on a Rimfire you haven't always got a huge amount of space. So I probably spend, interesting fact for you now, I probably spend more time messing about with rifles in the workshop than I do shooting them outside. And that won't just quite go on there, so let's just go another little dot forwards. Now don't forget folks, Picatinny rails and Picatinny rings, nip them in place, but you can see my thumbs on there and I'm pushing that forward, because you always want to push them forward, because effectively, when you think about it, this applies with pretty much any scope mounting system. The rifle is recoiling backwards and the scope is wanting to go forwards against the mounts. So it makes sense to make sure they're already pushed forward. Right, torque, torque, clunk, done. So swap over to the T15 Torx wrench now. On a Torx wrench, so it's a Torx bit on a Torx wrench. Sorry, Torx wrench. Start again. Torx bit on a Torx wrench. It's actually quite cold today, and my maybe my mouth isn't talking as freely as it ought to, because I'm trying to avoid the jitters. Can't even think what the word is now. What's it called when you mumble and shit, when you're shivering and mumbling because you're really, really cold? I remember once reviewing a rifle and it was about -5, and I was trying to talk to a camera, and it was impossible really, because I was chattering. That's the word I'm looking for. Chattering so badly. And in fact, I was on a wild boar hunt in Germany, not last year, the year before now, 2023, when I did the new Sauer 505 rifle, and it was so cold after that hunt that let's just put that bolt there. Right, that just clears. We got clearance there. So yeah, it was so cold on that hunt. I actually said on the video, I am chattering when I'm trying to do this, and yeah, because when you sat still in a wild boar seat for 3.5 hours, you get a bit chill. And of course you've got to weigh that up against the fact you can put all the clothes on in the world, but you do actually still need to be able to shoot in a fairly dynamic scenario. And of course you can't, it's not like when you go clay shooting where you can, you know, put a coat on and then take it off for, you know, a minute while you're doing the stand and then put it back on. On a wild boar hunt, you are sitting there like a statue, or standing there like a statue, for those 3 and a bit hours in Germany. And well, you might stand there for 3.5 hours for 3.5 seconds worth of shooting activity. So you kind of got to there's no time to get ready, you've got to be ready. Right, just popping these down. Like I say, I'm just spinning these into place. One of the things I love about Tier 1 scope rings, these are the older ones with the titanium screws on them, and these spin so easily into place on the hard anodised aluminium that you've no issues with kind of torque discrepancies and things like that. Right, how are we looking there now? That is looking quite nice. Now, I'm a little bit old school in the fact that I don't really agree with using some of the tools that people use for mounting scopes. And I'll tell you why that is. Since I'm not reviewing a product today, I can really talk openly and freely. Here's the thing. Okay, it's getting better now, but back in the day, so many scopes and rifles weren't actually really very straight or level. And you kind of, you're thinking, oh, I'm measuring to this accuracy with this tool, but you're actually measuring one item here with a badly toleranced item there. And, where are you actually winning? Where are you actually getting your baseline from? And there wasn't always much of an opportunity to get an accurate baseline. So I always went with the principle of aligning the lower 6 o'clock stadia of the crosshair with the centre of the bolt or bore. And I've probably said it on here many times before, nobody ever really seems to get hold of one of my rifles and go, oh, that scope's all wonky. They just sort of get hold of it and don't say anything because they don't sort of seem to think it feels odd. And I won't say I haven't had rifles that have been set up with some amazing precision, yet actually then still don't quite shoot right. Right, so that was just finger tight, nipped up with my fingers. And I'm just very carefully teasing the alignment on it, just to get it lined up. And of course, I'm actually moving my head slightly to make sure I'm in the centre of the reticle sight picture, to make sure I'm not actually even making a parallax error on that. I'm aligning on that in this particular scenario. So, but I do what I do, everybody does what they want to do, and I don't really bother using tools. But I'm not saying there isn't a place and time for tools in certain scenarios, but you've got to make sure that, it's no point saying how accurate the tool is if you're actually not measuring items with any kind of respectable tolerance themselves. And I mean, how accurate is a bubble level, for example? Because the human eye, when it comes to aligning things, can actually be phenomenally accurate and occasionally better than tools. But that's what millions of years of evolution have done for it. There's an unnerving ability for the human eye to align things, especially concentric circles. You find that in a lot of target shooting disciplines, where you've got a round target with a round scope and a round dot or a round aperture. And I started out with that with archery, and the human eyeball you have an amazing ability to totally subconsciously do it and align things concentrically. So as you can see, I'm just going diagonally back and forth. And the good thing about 6-bolt rings is I always start aligning up with the centre bolts, and I kind of do the other ones afterwards, and then I come back and I do the centre ones again last. And I am 100% confident in that setup and scenario. Now, I can't just quite fully see totally clearly through the optic because I'm in a fairly small space, but if I drop that down there, that looks absolutely beautiful. Now, this is, how shall we say it, a serious premium optic. 34mm tube. We've got massive turrets, we've got rotation indicators, we've got rotation locks on them, so you can't turn the turret. Move it to there and you can turn the turret with different this, that and the other, and then go all the way down and you're totally unlocked. You've got right and you've got green for left and right when that's set up and zeroed, and you've got illumination on it. You've got 11 stages of illumination on the side, and you've got intermediate off positions. And oh, guess what? This scope's been in a box for 6 months and the battery is still charged. Probably because I couldn't possibly leave it switched off accidentally. Right, or rather switch on accidentally. So that is great. Right, I'm going to take this tonight, I'm going to go and get it zeroed, and I've got some ammunition settings and testing to do to check out which ammunition I want to be shooting through this rifle while I'm doing some intermediate range target shooting, because I mean, what is long range? Personally, unless you really move into specialised kit with a rimfire, 300, 400 metres is pretty hard going, because you physically run out of elevation. Yes, you can use different rings and mounts and things, and you can use prismatic sights and all that kind of stuff. But for general fun and enjoyment, I think 300 metres is just a great maximum. But that's not to say you can't shoot further. I think I've shot 650 or something at some point. I wouldn't say it was as enjoyable though, because you get to the point where you can't even hear the bullets hitting the steel. So there we go, horses for courses. Right, thank you for watching. If this video happens to stimulate any questions, please put them on the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and go all the way through to the end of the video. Make sure you check out the link for this year's British Shooting Show, which is the 14th to the 16th of February at the NEC. I will be there. I will also be filming the show, and year after year after year, that show keeps getting bigger, better, and stronger within the industry. And in the times we've got at the moment, I think it's a great time to support the sport we all love. Right, thank you for watching. Bye for now. Thank you.